Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Stadia Cast episode 15. I'm Bill. That's Lloyd. What's going on, Lloyd?
Not much, man. It's a warm weekend, getting ready to go spend some time in the sun. But before that, I get the joy of talking about some Google Stadia.
That's right. Before we get started, we record this show live Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern, over at youtube.com/StadiaCast. If you want to be part of the show, you can leave a voicemail for the show. It's super easy to do. Go over to runjumpstomp.com/voicemail from any device, and we may even play it on the show. If you want to directly support the show, help us make more content for StadiaCast, head on over to anchor.fm/StadiaCast and click on the support this podcast link. Oh man, what are we talking about today, Lloyd? I mean, obviously Stadia, but what's like our main discussion?
Do you remember going to like the grocery store way back in the day, Bill, and you're looking at PC Gamer magazine or some other magazines, and you had this beautiful disc right on the front of the cover that was stuck on, I guess would be the proper English. And it had all these amazing names on it, like, I don't know, Baldur's Gate and I don't know, just all these amazing games. And there was no other way to play these games except going to the store and ponying up your $60 to buy the box. But you had this glorious disc that was sent from the heavens, the demo disc. And we're going to be talking about demos today because I think with Stadia, I don't know. I feel that maybe every game could be a demo.
That's definitely a possibility. And I too had that same experience. I just grabbed my iPad. I have old copies of Electronic Gaming Monthly on my iPad that I read through because I like retro games and I like to go through and check out that stuff. But it was awesome when they would come with discs. I remember this is kind of tangentially related. I remember going to the store and buying, this is before demo discs, but before they had the CDs. That was really the first implementation of widespread demos, was when discs came out, like for the PlayStation and stuff. But before that, you could still get demos in the back of PC magazines. They would have the code that you could type to try out a game. So I remember going to the local PC store and buying a magazine, bringing the magazine home and opening up the magazine in the back, typing all of the code into my Commodore 64 and then hitting run and playing the game. And it was awesome. But man, oh man, it got so much easier once they could start shipping discs. Demos kind of have gone away. I feel like they're not nearly as prevalent as they used to be. Do you feel that too?
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. First, I think we had different experiences because I would go to the store, I would buy a magazine, I would spend an hour typing in all the code, I'd hit run, and then it wouldn't work because I made a mistake on line 3, and I'd have to go back through and find that. So our experience is different just a little bit. But back to demos, yeah, demos basically went away. Like, I had a friend growing up, and her father would go and buy every game magazine that had a demo disc, and he'd play all the demos, and that was enough of the game. Like, he was super ADD gamer type person before that was kind of a term, and he only wanted like a 15 or 20 minute slice of a video game, and demos were perfect for him. And this was like, demo discs were fantastic. And then, I don't know, consoles came out, and you had like the official Xbox magazine. You'd get the DVD in the front that had all these amazing game demos, and it had like hidden secrets and things like that. And I used to collect all those dumb things and put them all in my Xbox and play them. And then we got broadband internet, and we're downloading 40, 50, 60 gigabyte games. And all of a sudden, there's no demos anymore. Like, maybe 1 out of every 1,000 games that comes out has a demo these days, it feels like. And I don't know, it's kind of sad because it's nice to sit there in front of your console, your PC, your television, and play a small slice of a game to say, hey, I like this game, or nope, this isn't for me. I'm going to take my $60 and put it somewhere else.
So let's actually talk about that experience for a second. Are there any games in recent memory where you feel like playing the demo convinced you, oh, I was on the fence about this game, but now I'm absolutely going to buy it? Have you run into that before?
Yeah, for going back to kind of my Nintendo roots, I heard all the news about Splatoon, which is a team-based cooperative shooter where you're inking a place like an arena, and you're a kid and you're a squid and you're going in the ink, and I'm like, this is dumb. This doesn't make any sense. This isn't going to be any fun. And then they put out a demo, and I'm like, holy crap. This is fun. I made fun of this thing. I don't know why I did that. I'm one of those internet dudes that makes fun of things, and I immediately put up my pre-order and bought it. And if I hadn't played the demo, I wouldn't have picked up Splatoon on the Wii U, and I wouldn't have bought it on the Switch.
And I have to say, I had the same, exactly the same. What's the word I'm looking for? Experience as you, except for ARMS. Again, Lloyd and I both
Right.
do Nintendo stuff, so we tend to talk about Nintendo stuff a lot. But ARMS, when they unveiled that at their January, where they had the live show, and they had Mr. Koizumi come out and talk about the price of the Switch, and when it was going to come out and all that stuff. And then they showed the footage of ARMS. I saw that and I was like, oh God, no, Nintendo, what are you doing? It's going to be a disaster. Motion controls, I don't want it. And then they had the Global Test Punch. When the Global Test Punch came out, I downloaded it, and oh my God, that game is awesome. It's probably my second favorite fighting game. My first favorite fighting game is Smash, of course, but it's my
Right.
second favorite fighting games. I adore ARMS. It's such a great game, and of course, horrible release window, bad timing and everything, so it didn't get the attention that it deserved. But it's a great game, and I never would have picked it up if they hadn't had the demo.
Totally.
Have you had an experience where, in recent memory, where playing a demo has pushed you away? Like, you were excited about a game, and then you were like, yeah, I'm not going to be playing this.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what demo it was. Yeah, Daemon X Machina. I
Mhm.
played that demo, and I'm like, oh, this is hot trash. But then they showed it at E3 again, and it's like, oh, this looks great. I'm shiny things really get me. If it's a new shiny thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm all in. But I played that demo, and I'm like, okay, well, so much for pre-ordering that game. So it can have both effects. Mainly back like early Xbox PS2 era, like the consoles used to ship with demo discs, and there's so many games that I wanted that were on that demo disc that I just went, ugh, no way. But then there's hidden gems like Amplitude, this amazing rhythm action game that was on PlayStation 2, and I bought that, and then I bought Frequency, and then I bought every other sequel just because of a 30-minute demo that was on this demo disc. So it can go both ways. But some publishers don't like the fact that, hey, if we put out a demo, people might not buy our game. I think in the long run, you're encouraging people to better spend their money, because if they buy a game and they don't like it, they're gonna probably not want to buy another game from that franchise or maybe publisher. But if you give them that option to give it a little taste test, I think that's it's good for the consumer.
I've said it many times on various podcasts, but I feel like if a publisher or developer or whoever makes that decision, if they are confident that they've done a good job, that they've got a good game, then they should really, really make sure that they make a demo and put it out available. And these days it's even easier than has ever been. Like, you don't have to go to the expense of printing those discs to put in the magazines. You don't have to pay that magazine to put, like, I mean, imagine that who made Frequency and Amplitude?
Harmonix.
Harmonix. So imagine that Harmonix makes this game, and then they're like, okay, we want to make sure that these demos discs are out there, so we're going to pay Electronic Gaming Monthly in order to include, like, that's one of the ways that EGM made money, was by these developers saying, here is the money for basically an advertisement.
Hmm.
And
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, and back to Amplitude and Frequency, if those games didn't sell, and mainly they sold because of that demo, we wouldn't have had Guitar Hero. We wouldn't have had all these rhythm games, because that company would have probably folded. So they can have big effect on the industry as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, they can have a big effect. But back to what I was talking about, my brain is I saw Lloyd said a shiny thing, and now I can't think of what I was. Where was I?
I was thinking of my harmonics thing, and I totally cut you off, and I feel bad, Bill.
No, don't feel bad. But do you remember what the hell I was talking about? Okay. Demos are much easier now because
Right.
they don't have that associated cost. It's just like, okay, well, we'll just upload the demo to the shop, and if somebody's interested, they can download it. It doesn't cost anybody anything, and it gives the player a chance to check out a game. And if you did a good job on your game, then the demo itself should sell. I think a lot of developers shy away from making demos for two reasons. Number one, they don't want to just do the first, like, sometimes the first part of your game is not the most compelling thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes
Yep.
there's like a slow build up, and the most compelling thing is going to be at the end or somewhere in the middle where you've got where like maybe your character has enough abilities to make the game more fun. A good example is something I was playing right before we started recording. I was playing Final Fantasy 14, and that game is pretty awful until you're about level 30 because you have very few abilities and they're really really slow, and the whole game plays really slow. But once you get enough abilities, the game gets really really fun and fast paced, and it's awesome. Their demo for Final Fantasy 14 is you can play the first 20 levels for free. That's terrible.
Right.
That's
Right.
going to make people say, oh, I'm not going to play this game because this is not fun. I don't know what they could do differently, but what a lot of companies do when they do make a demo is they don't just give you the beginning of the game. They do like a small section of the game for you to try out so that you can see what is this like. And a moment ago I was saying that demos don't cost anything these days. Well, if they do it that way, then there is a cost. So I can understand why some companies might not want to do demos, but with Stadia, and this is why we're talking about it on this show, I feel like the demo is one of the very, very important things that could happen on Stadia because there's no download, there's no friction. It makes it so easy for a player to watch like some footage and be like, wow, that looks really awesome. Wait, there's a button that I can click at the end of this video, and I can try that thing myself that I just watched. Sold. That's
Yeah.
really cool. And I feel like the associated cost that I was just talking about, where they got to get this section of the game, I think that Stadia is poised to make that less costly too by just doing a state share, and you only have access to the game for 10 minutes or something, but they just do a state share so that you can figure out how it works. I think that this could be really really big for the industry as a whole, not just Stadia, because it could bring demos back by making it easy to do on Stadia. If the sales start to ramp up from demos, then maybe the publishers will be like, well, you know what? Maybe we should do demos on these other platforms as well. What do you think, Lloyd? Do you think Stadia can usher in a new golden age of demos?
100%. Yeah, exactly the same thing that you said. Demos, any demo of a game costs a developer money. Like when E3 happens and you have a playable demo on the show floor, that's not the game that they're going to put on a disc and ship to people's houses. That's a specifically crafted small cut section of the game that they put out onto E3. And whenever they have a demo like that, it costs money and it costs development time. But just like you said, state share, like they demoed it for, or they talked about it rather, for YouTubers or Twitch people, where you can go and say, hey, I just beat this level in 43 seconds. Can you do better? And you share your state. They can do that for a big section of the game. So if there's a big boss battle, if there's something that maybe if you're in a story heavy game, like a game like Last of Us, if you played the first 30 minutes of that game, well, that's a pretty heavy 30 minutes, and maybe not everybody will like it, but it also kind of sets the story narrative for the rest of the game, and maybe you don't want to spoil that right away. So you go fast forward partway into the game where you have a big battle in an abandoned warehouse with these clickers, and it's like you're really showing off kind of what the game is. I mean, that's going to be almost free for these developers to do because it's just one state. It's save your save game at this part in this level with these items, and boom, there it is, and it gives you 30 minutes to do it. And I think that's going to be huge if developers start doing it, because if I could watch a video for a game that is just come out and I could click a button and I could play it in 5 seconds and I could say, yep, this is worth my $60, or nope, this isn't what I want to do. I mean, that's amazing for the consumer. And at the end of the day, it's going to be amazing for the developers and publishers as well.
I agree 100%. Let's go to chat real quick and see what people are saying. Vaxer in chat says you could say demos these days are just early access games. So a lot of times on Steam, they will have these games that are in what they call early access, where you get to play the game early before anybody else does because you bought it ahead of time. To me, that doesn't really feel like a demo. A demo is something where it's like, here, try this, and if you like it, you can buy it. So I don't know that that makes sense to me. Pat Duddy brought up Octopath Traveler. Did you do the demo for Octopath Traveler?
Yes, and that's one of those other games where I didn't know how I liked the look, but I didn't know how I was going to play. And then I played the demo, and I'm like, oh god, this game looks beautiful. I'm totally picking it up on day one. So there's been numerous games over the last generation where I've played the demo and it's turned into a purchase for me.
And Terza Reactor says Resident Evil 7 has a great demo, the kitchen demo. I'm not playing that because gross. Like, I saw some of, like, Resident Evil 7 is just a little too gross for me. I'm saying that knowing that I'm going to be streaming over on my Twitch channel sometime soon, Resident Evil 2, for the PS4. And I know that that's going to be gross, but the stuff that I saw in 7 was way grosser. And I don't like gross even a little bit. Let's see, what else did Terza Reactor says, I've got Xbox demo discs with unreleased games, Lamborghini, and this big one. Unreleased games, Lamborghini is the big one. I don't understand what that means. What does that mean?
There was a bunch of demo discs would come out and then the game would get canceled. And so you had this playable snapshot of a game that was never going to be, and those are really cool as well. Being able to play through games that were either different when they finally released or games that never came out, and that's because magazines were made like 6 weeks before you'd get it on newsstands. So those demo discs would have to be done like 3 months before the magazine hit on newsstands. So you'd sometimes get little gems like that.
Yeah, Nick in chat says the last demo that they played was Mega Man 11, and it persuaded me to not buy the game. Sometimes I'm thankful for demos saving me money, and that's a great point, because just because you didn't buy Mega Man 11 doesn't mean that Mega Man 11 is a bad game. It's just not a game that was for you, and not every game is for everybody, and that's why demos are so important. So I really hope that we do get demos on Stadia, and I hope that that Stadia having demos kind of trickles through to the rest of the video game industry as a whole. Phil Harrison. We're going to talk about Phil Harrison, but before we do, we're going to hear from our sponsors. So we're going to hear from a sponsor. Then we're going to listen to Mr. Phil Harrison talk about a whole bunch of stuff, because, man, that guy was busy this week.
Tunnel Runner from CBS Electronics, where the excitement never ends.
I'm not trapped. I'm not trapped.
All right, we are back, and let's talk about Mr. Phil Harrison. Did you get a chance to take a look at these articles, Lloyd?
I did.
All the quotes, anyway.
I did, and I also got to look at all of the talk on Twitter and everything after, which was just as entertaining as some of these discussions with Phil Harrison.
So he talked to GameSpot, who else was it? Eurogamer and Games Radar. I'm sure he talked to other ones, but these are the three that I pulled out for the show notes for this week. And so first, I want to talk about data caps. Lloyd, can you take a second and just kind of bring everybody up to speed on the concerns with data caps and Stadia?
Sure. So most people, not all people, depending on where you live, which country you live in, you have something called data caps, which is the limit to the amount of data that you can transfer monthly before you get charged. So if you say have a 20 gig data cap, if you do 21 gigs, your ISP is going to charge you X number of dollars. So they're prevalent a lot in the US. A lot of people have been saying based on where you are and if you use Comcast or whatever, that you might only have a 250 gig limit. And early on, when they were unveiling Google Stadia, they put out articles where if you play 2 hours of the game at 4K 60 frames a second HDR, it's going to be X gigs to do that. And everyone's like, well, if I do this 3 times, I'm blowing over my data caps. So there's been a lot of anger and a lot of panic out there for people, which is just. The thing that I tell people is, if you're watching Netflix and all you do is watch Netflix and you're not going over your data caps, as long as you're playing your Google Stadia games at 1080p, which is what your Netflix is probably coming in at, if you're replacing your TV time with Stadia time, you're fine. But if you start you having another TV going with Stadia, and then TVs upstairs are going Netflix, well, then you might have to look at your data caps a little bit more. So there is panic, but it's not like, oh my God, the sky is falling panic.
Right. Sorry, I muted myself. Boy, we're having technical issues today. Thank you to Chucks for the subscription. We appreciate it. Okay, let's see what Mr. Phil Harrison had to say about this. He said, here's the quote from his interview with GameSpot. He said, the ISPs have a strong history of staying ahead of the consumer trend. And if you look at the history of data caps in those small number of markets, and it's an actually, oh my God, I can't read today. And it's actually a relatively small number of markets that have data caps. The trend over time, when music and downloading became popular, especially in the early days when it was not necessarily legitimate, data caps moved up. Then, with the evolution of TV and film streaming, data caps moved up. And we expect that will continue to be the case. So basically what he's saying is, every time there's a new technology that uses more internet, more data, so that people are downloading more stuff at their house, the ISPs are like, okay, we're going to give you a little bit more. The data caps are really to get the people who are, God, what the hell was it? There were these ads that were something hog, like people would be yelling at their neighbors about hogging up the bandwidth or something. It was so stupid. Anyway, the ISPs will tell you it's to screw the people who are really harming everybody by downloading a bunch. That is nonsense. Those are lies. But what Phil says does make sense, that over time the bandwidth caps keep getting higher and higher. I don't personally know, because I don't have a bandwidth cap, and I think, Lloyd, you've said that you don't either, right?
Correct. Yeah. This quote by Phil is kind of accurate, but really not. Like, data caps, there used to be no data caps.
Right.
Back when the internet first came out, it's like all you can eat. And then the ISPs thought, okay, well, if we, like, this is back to like dial-up days. I used to work at a dial-up ISP when we had unlimited internet. If we said you had unlimited, people would stay connected 24/7. You have to buy more modems, buy more lines. The monthly charge goes up. So it was never the data. It was the phone lines. So then you implement a data cap where you can only be connected for X number of hours a day. Your phone lines free up, you save money. Well, then when things moved into the era of ADSL and stuff, you put data caps on because you want to limit the use. It doesn't necessarily cost the ISP that much more, especially these days, because every major ISP in the country has peering agreements with other ISPs. So you might have AT&T has a peering agreement with Comcast, and what that says is if we transfer a terabyte to you, you can transfer a terabyte to us for free, and so the bills are lowered that way. So saying that it costs 25 cents for a gig of data transfer for your ISP really isn't true anymore. but going back to Phil's quote, data caps haven't lowered or haven't gone up because of usage. They've gone up because of faster internet speeds. So the ISP can say, well, if you want faster data cap or bigger data caps, I'll give you a 500 megabit service, and then you get a terabyte now a month. And that's usually how data caps are expanded. It's by getting your customer to pay more money. It's still a very limiting it's a limiter that these ISPs are putting on, and they really probably don't even need to be there because the pipes are so big these days and the cost to move this data is so low. But ISPs are still in the business to make money, and they want to make money. They want to make money off of the most people. So you have the people that are buying their service and not using any data, but they have it for email. They make a lot of money off those people. But the people that have like a lot of usage, they're making less money off of them. So they put the data caps on so that they can then make more money off those people because they go over their data caps. So data caps will eventually go away. Like it just has to happen. There's going to be competition out there. There's going to be different ways to access the internet. It's not only going to be through your cable modem. There's going to be satellite internet that has low latency. There's going to be all sorts of services. 5G coming. That's gonna come. But this is all in the future. So this is the reality that we're going to be living with over the next little bit.
Well, okay. I agree that you're right about the history there, where we started out and we had no data caps, and then they artificially put them in place in order to make more money. I'm with you there. However, I do think that what Phil said does make sense, that as the internet gets faster, people use it to do more things. I mean, if you loaded a website from 1999 today, it would be like an instantaneous thing because there was so little data on the website. The websites today, they contain a lot more data than old websites do. We download videos all the time, so as internet speeds increase, which is kind of what you were saying, as those speeds keep going up, people just tend to use it more. And that's why the ISPs have had to raise data caps, because if everybody was hitting their data caps, then there would be an issue, and people would revolt. But really, for the most part, most people are like like my parents, who use it for email, and that's pretty much it. They watch TV. They don't watch YouTube. They watch TV, and they don't use the internet to its fullest potential. But they're still paying a bunch of money to their ISP, because how else are you going to get your email? You know?
Sure.
So I do think that as we go towards a more streaming centric thing for, God, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know that Phil is right here. I feel like the people who are going to be streaming Google Stadia stuff, those people are already pretty heavy internet users. So
Exactly.
I don't know that the caps will suddenly go up because of that. Because, I mean, unless you're watching Netflix while you're streaming a game, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I would love to hear what the listeners think about this. But he said a lot of other stuff as well. He said ISPs are smart, and they understand they're in the business of keeping customers happy and keeping customers with them for a long time. I don't agree with that.
No.
Because, well, at least here in the United States, there, like you mentioned, competition. There is no competition in the United States. Comcast has half the country, and what's the other one? Spectrum has the other half of the country, and they don't compete with each other at all. You either have Comcast or you have Spectrum, and that's pretty much it. You don't have any other choices. So the ISPs, yeah, they're smart. They understand that they're in the business of taking customers' money and not having to worry about what the customer thinks, because it doesn't matter if the customer's happy. You were about to say something, Lloyd?
And that's exactly what happened up here, at least in Manitoba, where I live in Canada. We had no data caps, and then you had one service implemented a data cap because they had higher speed internet and they wanted to limit usage. Then you had the other one that's like, well, if they have data caps, we're going to put data caps in. And then it was like that for a while. I think I had like 500 gigs limit, and I was reaching that just watching streaming video and downloading games and things like that. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we can get more customers if we get rid of our data caps. And then all of a sudden one got rid of it and then the other one got rid of it. And all it's going to take is some competition. Phil's saying that they want to keep customers happy. So as speeds on the internet go up, they're going to get your caps are going to go up. Well, that's not exactly true. As the user starts paying more, your caps will go up because that's just one carrot that they can put on the end of the stick to get people to upgrade to the next tier. So in reality, competition is going to do it. So when you look at the new internet services that are coming out, 5G, when that eventually comes out, fast internet through satellites, other things that are going to take some of the customers away, you're going to get those ISPs where people are still going to want their cable modem, but those ISPs are going to get hit with people leaving for these other services. So they're going to have to make that package more attractive for people.
Random Noob in chat says, UK here, only data cap I have is mobile, and that keeps increasing. I used to have 4 gigabytes. Now I have 26 gigabytes for the same price. But Random Noob, you live in the UK, and there's not a de facto duopoly in the UK. I was talking to my buddy Richard, who lives in the UK, and he said that when he goes to choose a carrier for his mobile phone, he has 7 choices to go from. For me, I have 2. I can either go with Verizon or I can go with AT&T. I can also go with Sprint, but then I just can't use my phone anywhere near where I live. So that's not really a choice. I can go with T-Mobile. Again, where I live, not really a choice because they don't have coverage here. And Sprint and T-Mobile just merged. So this is a problem. This is a serious problem in the US where we have no competition for our internet service providers. But other countries, they don't really run into this issue nearly as much. Now, does that affect me? Not really, because I have fast enough bandwidth through the ISP that I have no choice but to go with, which is Spectrum. I have no choice, have to go with Spectrum. There's no other choices where I live. But they do provide enough bandwidth that I could play Stadia no problem. And I think that that's probably the case for most people, unless you live in very, very remote areas. Or, now, let me get rid of a couple of those varies. Unless you live in more rural areas, which even I live in a rural area and I'm covered, but I know that there's like my father who lives 5 miles that way, roughly. He can't get high-speed internet at his house because the cable company just said, no, we're not going to do it unless you pay us $5,000 to run the wire, which is completely asinine. Phil also said, and this is probably we've been shitting on Stadia for the last little bit, but this is the part where I think that Phil, he needed to say this. He said, I've seen math calculations that people have done. If you take 35 megabits per second, if you take 35 megabits per second, it's not always 35 megabits per second because we use compression. There will be some times when it's actually using significantly less data than that. So it's not correct to multiply 35 megabits per second by the number of seconds that you play and have that come out to be, oh, you're going to blow through your bandwidth caps like that playing on Stadia. Because of the compression that they're using, he's saying that's the minimum that you need in order to hit this mark, and it's not always going to be that you have to be streaming at that speed the whole time. So any last thoughts on that before we move over to game prices?
No, that is a really good thing for them to come out and say, because they say that, I think it was PC Gamer said that it was going to be like 16 gigs an hour at 4K HDR or 60 frames a second. the reality is that it's not going to be quite that. If you're playing an action game, it is probably going to be close to that. But if you're playing a game that's a little bit slower, that data usage is going to be a lot lower. So it's a good thing that Phil came out and took one of the big like anger talking points from Reddit and other places away, where people are like, oh, it's going to cost me so much money. And it's like, well, sure. Okay. If you want to play if you have low data caps and you want to play on the highest resolution, maybe Stadia isn't for you yet. But hopefully your service provider will adapt and it will become something that you can use in the future.
Yeah. Let's talk about game prices. I don't know why people seem to have these unrealistic expectations when it comes to Google Stadia. Things like, okay, you're going to pay a subscription and you get all of the games for free. Well, okay, that doesn't really make much sense, but that's not what's happening. So it determined that it's not the Netflix of video games, where you pay a subscription and you get all of these games for free, which I kind of take issue with the for free part because you're paying, but whatever. It's just a store. That's what Google Stadia is. It's a store, and you just don't have to have a console for it. Okay? So with that being said, now some people are like, oh, well, the games have got to be cheaper on Stadia, right? Why would the games be cheaper on Stadia? Like, what is the reason? And the answer that a lot of people would say is, well, because you don't own the game, you just get to play the game. And, we've talked about game ownership on the show before, but Phil kind of responded to this. You want to read his quote here, Lloyd?
Yes. I'm sorry, my
Story 2.
browser. Yeah, my browser just reset.
Oh, okay.
I guess it crashed. Okay, there it is.
Okay.
I got it. The value you get from the game on Stadia means you can play on any screen in your life: TV, PC, laptop, tablet, phone. I don't know why it would be cheaper. I think that it's going to be valuable to players. In theory, the Stadia version of a game is going to be the highest possible quality of innovation and sophistication on the game engine side. The publisher or developer is in as much control of the prices as we are. So it's a bit different for me to say what the prices will be right now, but we're obviously going to be very aware of prevailing prices in the marketplace. So sure, yeah, that totally makes sense. And I kind of understand where the public's coming from, because it's like, well, I'm paying $10 a month. Why do I have to pay $60 to get a game? And it's like, well, you don't have to pay $10 a month. You can play these games at 1080p 60 for free after you buy them. But you're also not buying the $400 console that you're going to put under your TV. So that $10 a month, divide that 400 by the $10 a month, and that gives you a big chunk of time that you're not you're not. I guess front paying. You're basically going to be paying a subscription to get that console, the virtual console in this case.
People are constantly, this is Google's fault, because they
100%
led with
is.
the $10 a month thing. So now everybody constantly thinks that the $10 a month is a requirement. Look, I bought a Stadia Founders Pack, right? I bought a Stadia Founders Pack, and it comes with 3 months of Stadia Pro, whatever. Unless I'm going to be getting, unless the games that you do get with the Stadia Pro, unless the games that come with that are really compelling, I probably, even though I'm a big fan of, or I'm hyped for Stadia, I doubt that I will continue to subscribe to Pro. I don't care about 4K gaming. I just want to play a game. I don't really care how it looks. And I like the idea of being able to play on my TV, on my PC, on my laptop, on my tablet, well, maybe not on my phone, but because that's really small. But I like the idea of being able to play wherever the hell I want. And Google created this problem because they got up there on, I was going to say on stage, but it wasn't really on stage, but they got up there in the video and they were like, and it costs $10 a month. And everybody's like, oh, wow, that's a really good deal for all these games. And then they're like, and it'll be free in 2020, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" So what games do you get? Destiny 2, and no, that's it. Every other game you have to buy. If they had just reversed their messaging and said, "Look, we've got a new store. You can buy games from that store, and for an added bonus, if you want, you can have access to a growing library by subscribing for $10 a month." If they had done it just in reverse, this whole conversation I don't think would have been happening, because
Yep.
they said the subscription first, everybody has unrealistic expectations. Lloyd, what do you think,
Yep.
man?
100%. If they came right out of the gate and say you can play any of the games you buy at 1080p on any device that you own for free, and everyone would have been like, ah, yeah, you'd have the virtual audience would have been screaming, but there was no audience. It was just a video. But they, yeah, like you said, they came right out and it's like the highest possible quality, 4K, 60, HDR. Look at this, $10 a month, and then you have to buy your games, and you get Destiny, yay, a game that people aren't super excited about because it's been out for a couple years. So messaging was a little bit odd there. But as for game prices, I still remember back when I started podcasting in like 2005. And when video game podcasting started to get a little bit popular, the like from the IGNs and the other big media conglomerates of the world, they're like, yes, as soon as we get downloadable games are going to be cheaper because they don't have to put, they don't have to press the disc and put it on a truck and send it across the country. And just as soon as we get game downloads, the world is going to be rosy. You'll be able to buy a game for $30 instead of $60. This is going to be amazing. Every game is available as a digital download now, and it's the same price. Like, prices of games are never going to go down. The amount of investment of money to make a game is going up, so the prices are never going to go down. Just taking a console out of the equation isn't going to mean that games are going to be cheaper, by definition, because the developers aren't paying for that. They're still paying to make the game, and they're putting it out there. So sure, games are going to be cheaper when sales happen and when prices go down, and when you have like a Steam sale on the Stadia store where you can buy a game for $5. The nice thing now is you don't have to worry about downloading. Like, I know people that have like 1,000 games in their Steam library, and I'm like, well, how many have you played? Well, 5. Okay, why? Well, because it takes forever to download and install, and I don't have the hard drive space. Well, you don't have to worry about that with Stadia. So wait for sales, get your games down the road for a discount if you want, or buy the latest and greatest for $60. And then you don't have to worry. You don't have to wait for it to come in the mail. You don't have to download it on your PC. You just hit go and boom, there you are. You're playing it on your PC. It totally makes sense why the games are by default going to be the same price. But who knows? In the future, developers or publishers rather could like Stadia, and they might want to give a discount to some of the games there just to get more people online and playing.
Noah Van Zadelhoff, hopefully I didn't butcher your name. I feel like I probably got it right. They said, wasn't there a benefit for Pro that there are discounts? Possibly. It may give you discounts in the future, just like, on PlayStation, if I subscribe to PSN, when they have sales, usually the sales are a little bit better for people who subscribe to PSN. Now, that is not the reason that I subscribe to PSN. I subscribe to PSN so that I can play games online. And that is included with Google Stadia. You don't have to pay anything to play your game online, which I think is awesome. And I hope that Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, they look at this and they say, Google is able to get people to subscribe based on the other stuff. Maybe we should just let everybody play online, because I know that when Nintendo did on the Switch for the first year, it was free online, and then when they turned on the Nintendo Switch Online thing, like, the number of people playing dropped because people didn't want to pay the $20 a year for it. So, like, I definitely think that that's definitely something that is important, and I hope that the other companies understand that you're bifurcating your audience by having it so some can play online and some cannot. And hopefully the deals are a good enough thing that it makes sense to subscribe to Stadia for $10 a month. But if not, it doesn't matter because you can still play any game that you buy.
Yep.
So there's that.
Definitely.
Let's look at his next. Our transitions today are awful, by the way. We're just dropping the ball. I think we're both sleepy, and Lloyd is ready to go outside. Okay, let's talk about beta testing. There's been a lot of people who have been said, okay, are we going to be getting another beta test for Stadia? Because we kind of had that first one that was just playing Assassin's Creed
Odyssey.
Odyssey, thank you. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and they called it Project Stream. I'd never participated in it because it didn't occur to me that I would be interested in it at all until like the Stadia stuff came out. So I didn't test in it, and I think that there's a lot of people who didn't try it out, and they still want to see what it's like to try Stadia. And they're also thinking, hey, if Google wants to have a good launch, then they should probably do another beta test so that we can see what it's like. I can understand that. However, there's one big reason why they wouldn't want to do it, and it's not what Phil Harrison said to Games Radar. I'm going to tell you what he said, and I'm going to tell you the reason that they don't want to do a public beta. Here we go. He said, geographically, the U.S. is the most complex place to test, just because of the size of the country. And actually, Europe, and particularly the UK, are relatively, they are easier to launch, probably because they have better internet and they're smaller. So we're not going to do another test in the UK or Europe. If we had time, we probably would have done so, but we don't need to. I think that they're saying they're pretty happy with how things went. That's not the real reason why we're not getting a beta test. The real reason that we're not getting a beta test is because now we've thrown the chum in the water, and the sharks, that's us, like they're paying attention now. A lot of us didn't pay attention to Project Stream when it happened, but now with the idea of Stadia out there, everybody's like, oh, I want to try this. I want to see if it's going to work. And Google, if they did a test before the November launch, it would just get hammered into oblivion because so many people would want to try it. And everybody's trying it at the same time. That's going to be really, really bad. So they want to do a slow rollout where you start with just the founders. And this is why they are doing the founders pack the way that they did, so that they can control how many people are using it and how it's being used. So overall, they're going to do a slow rollout and build up over time so that when they do launch in 2020, they can take the deluge of people who are coming at them, like the zombies in World War Z, just like climbing over each other to play Stadia. I don't think that they could handle it this like at very first. They want to slowly build up over time. Lloyd, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the beta that they did for Project Stream was great. It gave them the data that they really needed. Google's a data-driven company, so if they get enough points of data for I don't know what they were looking at, like bandwidth, the max bandwidth they can use to this part of the country, or the latency for in this area compared to this area. With that enough data, with enough of that type of data, rather, they can make a model and they can kind of plan out their rollout. And they are doing another beta. It's called the Founders Pack. You have to pay to get in. This is a paid beta, essentially, because it's a beta. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to just click play and then sign up for a Stadia free account and play these games. So that's one part of the rollout. And then we have to look at what Google does. YouTube is one of the biggest consumers of bandwidth in the world. Well, that's another beta. They can look at various areas. They can see what your bandwidth is like in different parts. It's like, okay, let's see the LA area. What are things going to be like? And they can look at the throughput for YouTube videos, because it's all the same thing. Like the biggest part of Stadia is going to be the bandwidth to get the video signal to you. making the image, that's easy. They have these cards in these data centers that can render this game at whatever resolution they want. That's easy stuff. That makes sense. That is, it works in a controlled environment. They can test that to their heart's content without us having to test it. But it's getting that signal to our TVs or our screens or our phones that is really going to be the make or break thing for Google Stadia. Well, they have YouTube. YouTube is huge. People use it all the time. Well, if they want to see what data is like going to Winnipeg, Manitoba, they can bring up those stats. So yeah, I think what Bill said is really one of the key points as well. They don't want any sort of egg on their face with say one of their cards dies and it happens to be one of the big gaming magazines and they're like, oh, I was playing Stadia and then it froze and it crashed and all this stuff. They don't need that bad press. They want to just slow roll this out into everybody that is paid for the Founders Edition. You can play games kind of as they start shipping these things out to people. They can kind of do a controlled rollout, and then it's all going to be like sunshine and rainbows. Hopefully, for Google, that's what they want.
And when it launches in 2020, when it's like the real launch, I don't think it's going to be like, hey, everybody, you can all play now. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be, all right, the people who have signed up, we're going to start sending out invitations. You can play, you can play, you can play, you can play. And the reason why they want to do that is because when you are dealing with a network resource where a lot of people are hitting the same thing, I'll give you a perfect example. World of Warcraft or any other MMO, like that first day is a horrible experience. The reason the first day is a horrible experience is because there's way more people playing than would ever be playing at any other time. After the first day, after the first couple of days, there's going to be way less people playing on Google Stadia, not because it's bad, but because they have other things to do and they're just really excited to try it that first day. And after that, they're going to be like, well, I'll play when I have time. I got to go mow the lawn. I got to go do the dishes. I got to, go work out. I got to go to work. So all these things are going to take people away from Google Stadia. And that means that the people who are playing at that time, they're going to have a better experience. So if everybody is hitting it all at once, I think that they probably would buckle under the pressure. However, we also have things like, I watched the debate. For those of you who are outside the U.S., there's a presidential debate was streaming on YouTube, and I watched it on YouTube, and there were lots and lots of people watching it. And at the same time that I was watching that, there was also a lot of people watching a bunch of other stuff on YouTube. Google has this stuff figured out. I think that they really do. We're coming up on 55 minutes already, Lloyd. Do we want to take the feedback and throw that into the next episode? Because we're going a little long here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Let's do that so people can look forward to hearing that feedback in next episode.
That's right. Okay, so we will hear from Lawworthy and Anthony Talcott next week. And if you want to get a hold of us, it's easy to do. We're at Stadia Cast on Twitter. I'm at Run Jump Stomp on Twitter. He is at Dasme on Twitter. Spell that for us, Lloyd.
DASME. Kind of German, but I'm not German, so that's weird.
Wait, it's a German word? What does it mean?
Das. That's where I kind of got it from, like Das Boot and stuff like that. So I just put Das Me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I did that. That was the 25 years ago. So that's I'm old.
We both have lots of shows, so if you want to check out our other shows, just find us. He's at res.tv. Wait, is it restv.com or res.tv? I never remember.
It's res.tv, but restv.com also works.
Oh, okay. And I'm at runjumpstomp.com. Look, if you're looking for a place to talk about Stadia, you can join our Discord, which is runjumpstomp.com/Discord. You can also join the unofficial Discord server of the official Stadia subreddit, and we want to thank them for letting people know about our show, which you can find over at bit.ly/Stadia Discord. The music you are about to hear is Subterranean Kamikaze by Zircon. You can check out their stuff over at zirconstudios.bandcamp.com. Lloyd, I will see you next week, man. Thanks, chat, for coming by.
Later, everybody.
Bye-bye. All right. We're back. God, we were so clunky today. What is wrong with us?
I don't know. It was weird. We normally gel really well. Today was kind of oil and water going on.
All right. I had like ideas in my head that I could not get out. I think that was probably the big problem. All I did, no, you didn't make me slip up at all, dude. But you go to the lake and think about what you've done.
I'm gonna go be very sad while sitting on the beach drinking adult beverages. It's gonna be terrible. I'm sorry, Bill.
That's okay. I hope you learn your lesson.
I hope so. I hope so.
Take it easy, man.
All right. Have a good one, Bill.
Bye.
Bye. See you, chat room.
He said goodbye, everybody. Oh man. Well, I'm sorry for the goofiness. I don't know what was wrong with me today. I just couldn't get my ideas out of my head. So let's go back through and see what chat was saying about various stuff. What do we got here? People are angry that you have to pay $10 a month, that you have to pay $60 for games. Yeah, but you don't have to pay $10 a month. Noah Van says, meanwhile, you pay $60 a month for multiplayer. No, you pay $60 a year for multiplayer on console, not per month. Why would games be cheaper? Stadia is your console. You're paying for a virtual, powerful console, and it is totally Google's fault because their messaging was just so bad. People forget that with Stadia, every game will be 60 frames per second with no loading screens and no update patches. Plus, you're playing with a 10.7 GPU with the ability to use multiple GPUs. Yes, I don't think those numbers are really that important, though. I think the frames per second is a very important number, but the other stuff I don't feel like is nearly as important, especially that 10.7 GPU, because Xbox, whatever, and PS5, they're going to have very, very high teraflop hardware in their systems. So I don't think comparing that 10.7 teraflops is really important. Although that is something people tend to forget. They tend to forget that Google is using this thing called elastic computing, where as they need more power to do something, they can add more power to it. And when you have a system at home like an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch, you can't add more power to it later on down the road. You're pretty much stuck with it. Stoneski76 says, people don't care about the facts. They just want to believe whatever they feel justifies their own platform. This is the Pepsi versus Coke, or Sega versus Nintendo, or Netflix versus Hulu, whatever there is out there, or Apple versus Android. There's always going to be people who are tribal about whatever it is that they want to use. They want to have that tribal mentality, and it's just a bad idea. It'd be like if I did a show, or like Lloyd and I did a show, and we would never say anything bad about it. Who the hell would want to listen to that? If you want to listen to somebody who just constantly praises something, how interesting is that? I don't think that's interesting at all. PlayStation 5 and Scarlet force you to buy a $400 console and games are full price. #outrage. To be fair, we don't know the price of the PS5 or the Scarlet. However, I do think that $400 is probably where it's going to land. It actually might be higher now that we have those tariffs in place, the Trump China tariffs, which is a 25% tariff on any good coming in from China, which is where the PS5 and I'm sure the Scarlet and the Nintendo Switch are all going to be made. So if it's a $400 console expected to cost $500 as a 25% increase, it's really crazy. Google confused me as they said I can access Ghost Recon Beta on October 4th, but Stadia doesn't launch until November. That's very interesting, Terza Reactor. I don't remember reading about the... You know what? No. Did Google say you could access Ghost Recon Beta on October 4th? Or did Ubisoft say that you could access Ghost Recon Beta on October 4th? Because if it's Ubisoft saying that, then you have to keep in mind that, you know, that could be on other platforms, not necessarily Stadia. In fact, Microsoft xCloud is launching in October, a month ahead of Stadia, which I wonder if that's a direct reaction to Stadia or not, or if that's what they were planning already. I read an article where Google helped multiplay power a what the hell? I read an article where Google Cloud helped multiplay power a record-breaking Apex Legends launch. So they're testing this stuff already. Apex Legends reached 50 million players in a couple of days. I guess I'm confused. Noah wants to know what.com, runjumpstomp.com/discord. Here, I'll give it to you right now. Runjumpstomp.com/discord. So there you go. You can just click on it. On the Ghost Recon Stadia trailer. Huh. That's interesting. People are genuinely fearful of Stadia. People are always nervous about something that they think is going to cost them more money. When rule 1 is keep it clean for the 10-year-old, that might read chat. Rule 10 is to be 18 years or older. Oh, okay. Yes. That's okay. You want to know why that's the rule in my Discord? The rule in my Discord is because, well, first off, keep it clean because my now 11-year-old can read chat. Like he can come in the room and see Discord on my screen. So I want it to be clean. But I work with I work with kids. I'm a teacher, and my rule is that I don't want to hang out with teenagers when I'm not at work. Does that make sense? So that's the reason. Soundwave 1. Apex Legends was a free game and Google used its cloud service to help it have a successful launch. Yeah, but that's not really that doesn't have anything to do with Google Stadia. Oh my god, I got a cough. That doesn't have anything to do with Google Stadia. Stadia is streaming video. That's all it is. It's just like YouTube. So I don't think that the Apex Legends having a smooth launch has anything to do with that. Yes, they're both video games and they're both online things, but it's not streaming video. It was just using the servers in the same way that most multiplayer servers happen. Vaxxer, I have no idea if I'm going to stream later. It depends on what's going on. Noah, let me tell you something, man. If you don't give me reason to think that you're under 18, then how would I know? You know what I mean? But if I think somebody's acting like an immature kiddo, I'm going to boot them. I'm sure that there are people who are under 18 who are in our Discord. So I'll just pretend that I haven't seen what you said. I'm thinking about streaming later. If I do stream later, it will be Resident Evil 2. I want to be scared. I want to be scared bad. I like scary stuff. A little nervous about the gore, though. Like Joel Mead. I just assume that Joel Mead is 24. I think the 10.7 teraflops of power message is important as PS5 are 18 months away. I understand what you're saying, Terza Reactor, but the PS5 and the Scarlet being 18 months away, Okay, so the reason why the 10.7 teraflops of power is bad. Well, how do I want to say this? The reason why relying on that number is bad is because people are going to not understand the whole elastic computing thing. And when the Xbox Scarlet and the PS5 do come out, their numbers will be higher than 10.7. They will be more powerful than 10.7, more powerful than a Stadia Blade. Okay? So, what people will say then is, see, Google Stadia isn't even as powerful as the Xbox Scarlet and PS5, and you don't have it in your house. This is why Stadia is bad. But what they fail to realize is that Google can essentially tape those things together, and give me as many blades as I need to accomplish the thing that I need to accomplish in my game. I understand. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But people won't understand that. The whole elastic computing thing is people just won't understand it. It's going to go right over their heads. And it's not because they're dumb or anything, but it's probably because they won't read the article. They'll see the headline. Oh, look at that. It's 10.7. Awesome. And then they'll see the article from the headline from the Project Scarlet and the PS5, and they're like, oh, look at that. It's 15 teraflops or whatever. Great. Clearly, Google Stadia is not worth it. So relying on that is kind of, I would say, a bad idea from Google. I think they'll advertise 8K power on launch of PS5 and Xbox Scarlet. See, now, but will it really be 8K? That's the thing, is like, I know that Google Stadia said, hey, we're going to be able to do 8K 120 frames per second, which sounds fantastic. Most people don't have an 8K TV, and I doubt that anybody's TV is 100. Well, very few people have a TV that's 120 frames per second, so that doesn't really matter. That's for the future. Okay. But I think the PS5 and Xbox Scarlet both have said that they were going to be 8K. However, we also have to keep in mind that sometimes 8K is not really 8K, it's just up-resed 4K. Just like right now, sometimes when we're playing a game in 4K, like I've got a 4K TV in my bedroom, and when I bring my Nintendo Switch in and I plug it in and I sit there and I play a game, that TV, like, it's not like my Switch is suddenly a 4K thing. It's still 1080p. It's just up-resed to make it look so it takes up the whole screen. So when you worry about the numbers, that's when your argument kind of tends to fall apart. Stadia is going to make gaming very, very convenient. That's where they need to make their argument, because if you get into a numbers argument, it's just not, it doesn't work out. It's too nebulous. But when you get into an argument about, hey, I can play this game on my computer, and then I can pick up my controller, go into the next room, and play it on my TV. And oh gosh, I gotta go someplace. Let me grab my tablet. I'll take my tablet with me, and I can play it on my tablet as well. That is a really compelling argument for why you would want to use Stadia. Getting into an argument about how fast the processors are, I think, is just silly. And hopefully Google doesn't worry about it too much. Bragging rights go a long way towards establishing a platform. I disagree. You can have the most powerful platform, and look, hey, here's an example. Nintendo 64 was the most powerful console of its generation. Did you realize that? The Nintendo 64 was the most powerful console of its generation. It was also the worst selling console of its generation. The numbers don't matter. What matters are the games. And if the games are the same everywhere, then how do you compare? Well, you compare by what's the most convenient. Right, random noob. That's kind of what I was saying about the not really 8K. All right, guys. I think it's time for me to wrap up the show. Oh, hold on. I'm just talking from a marketing aspect that teraflops are being thrown around for PS5, etc. Yeah, and I think that that's a mistake, both on Google's part and Sony's part and Microsoft's part. Because the average consumer doesn't care about that. They just want to know what games are going to be on it and what do the games look like. Esteban says, I just want to get my hands on the controller. I know. I'm still very nervous about that controller. Like the D-pad on that controller, it looks bad. But I also thought the D-pad on the PS4 looked pretty bad too. And I love the D-pad on this. I think it's great. Everybody hates the D-pad on the Joy-Cons, and I think the D-pad on the Joy-Cons is great, and it looks awful though. Well, I don't like the idea. I don't like to say the word stupid when we're talking about something like that, but it's just, it's unnecessary to talk about teraflops. Random Noob says, I have two on order, the Founders Pack and the separate white one. I think it looks pretty good. I think the controller looks good. I just worry about the D-pad. I feel like that D-pad is going to, it just looks too flat. Soundwave says, consoles are going to get left in the dust in the long run. If people thought PC was more powerful than consoles, if people thought PC was more powerful than consoles, not consoles, have to go up against data centers, which are supercomputers. Yeah, but consoles, like, there's a lot more people who play games on consoles than do on PC, just because it's easier. And the real argument that you want to have is that it's more convenient to play a game on a console than it is on a PC. It's even more convenient to play a game on Stadia or on a streaming service. It doesn't have to be Stadia, it could be xCloud, than it would be on a console. That's the thing that people are forgetting, is that convenience wins every time. Like, look at music piracy. Music piracy used to be like the way that people got music, is they would steal the music by going to Napster and downloading it. And then as soon as the music companies understood, if we make it easy to get access to this, people will pay for convenience. All right, people will pay for convenience. And as soon as everybody understands that Stadia is going to be the most convenient way to play the games, then I think that it's going to take off. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about it. And my iPad picked up that I was talking there for a while, and now it's transcribing everything that I'm saying. Stop it. Oh my god, stupid thing. It's going to be exciting to game on a completely different platform. This game anyway from anywhere. Game for anyway and anywhere is very cool. I do agree on that 100%. I also am very excited about how Stadia can, how do I want to say this? I'm very excited in the way that, like, the games that are only possible in a cloud environment. That is very exciting to me. Noah, I'd rather see a Wi-Fi HID adapter. HID? Human interface device? Oh, for the controller? Wait, what? I would rather see a Wi-Fi HID adapter so you could connect any keyboard and mouse combination to Stadia. Oh, I understand. So you could hook up these things. Well, okay, so random noob. Here's the thing. Just play it on your computer. When you play Stadia on your computer, you'll have your keyboard and mouse attached. And then it'll just work the way that you want. You have to post on our Stadia that talks about Wi-Fi connected mouse keyboard. That would be neat. Yeah. Oh, I understand what you're saying. Okay. I don't know that that's really like using a mouse and a keyboard on the TV doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I know that there are people who do, and that's fine. It adds extra latency if you connect it via PC, which is why the whole Wi-Fi controller exists. I don't think that that's true. I know that's what Google said, but I think Google is giving us a little false information, not because they're lying liars telling lies, but because I don't want to say this. They don't want to bother explaining it to us that having the controller use Wi-Fi means that when I go from my PC to my TV to my tablet to my phone to my Chromebook, I don't have to reconnect my controller. My controller is always connected, right? So I don't have to worry about that when I go from all those places with a controller. I think that's the real reason why they do the Wi-Fi. Does it add latency to have like a Bluetooth controller or a USB controller? Maybe a little, but the amount of latency that is added is so small that I think it is negligible, and I don't think is a real issue. So if you're playing a game using mouse and keyboard on a computer that is connected to Stadia via Wi-Fi or Ethernet, I think you're going to be fine. Yeah, Wi-Fi controllers mainly because you cannot connect a device to a Chromecast. Yeah, right. That's another thing too. Terza Reactor, would you see Stadia exclusive collector's edition games? Well, okay, I'm sure not exclusive, but I'm sure that they will have the digital deluxe editions of games where you get like, so for instance, if I bought Final Fantasy 14's collector's edition, I got like this in-game pet and a crazy mount and, X number of other in-game items. Like, yeah, I can see them doing that same stuff that we see on other platforms. As far as doing a Stadia exclusive, possibly. I don't think a lot of developers will do it, but I do see like sometimes developers will say, okay, on Xbox you get this in the game, on PlayStation you get this in the game, on Nintendo you get this in the game, and on Stadia you get this in the game. I'm also talking physical, like statues. Oh. I mean, I don't see why not. We already, like, for instance, when Sonic Mania came out for the Nintendo Switch, you could have bought like the collector's edition, and the collector's edition came with a Sonic statue. He was standing on top of a Sega Genesis. If you hit the button on there, it did the Sega thing, and it came with a code. So you put the code in and you got your game. And I'm sure that that same thing will happen with Google Stadia, where you can, this is from the Elder Scrolls Online. All right, this is from the Elder Scrolls Online. This is the Morrowind. The statue came with my Morrowind collector's edition, and like it also came with a code for the game. Actually, it might have came with a disc, but I don't know. I don't care. You see this stuff happen a lot, where a statue comes out and you get the statue and a code, and that's fine. What is that? This is a clockwork or a dwarven golem or something. I can't remember. It's from Elder Scrolls Online. But isn't it cool? It's too tall to put on my shelf back there, which makes me sad. Yeah, if you look in the background, I got a lot of stuff. Towards the reactor, I've got that Sonic Collector's Edition, 2 of them. All right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you for hanging out with me. You guys are awesome, and I will see you guys next time, which would be next Sunday. And don't forget, you can also find all of my stuff over at runjumpstomp.com. Check out runjumpstomp.com/shows. And if you want to support Stadia Cast, go to, I got to bring up my show notes to do that. Go to anchor.fm/StadiaCast and click on the support this podcast link. All right. I will see you guys. Bye-bye.